something is worth doing, it should be worth doing right. Hi, this is Barry Phillips of 10-Minute Torah, day number 2 of Torah portion Naso. Let's continue now in Bamidbar, Numbers chapter number 4, and come to the conclusion of the matter pertaining to the sons of Levi. And begin reading in chapter number 4, with verse number 46. All the registered ones of the Levites whom Moshe and Aaron and the leaders of Israel registered by their clans and by their fathers' houses, from 30 years old and above, even to 50 years old, all who came to do the work of the service and the work of bearing burdens in the tent of appointment. Their registered ones were 8,580. According to the mouth of Yahweh, they were registered by the hand of Moshe, each according to his service and according to his burden. Thus they were registered by him as Yahweh commanded Moshe. At the end of the American Civil War here in the South, it's called the War of the Northern Invasion. General Lee is gathered with his troops at Appomattox courthouse area. The war has dragged on now for much longer period of time than anyone imagined. The South has put up a valiant fight, won the first half of the war, literally. And now it's come down to a war of attrition. Supplies are low. Men are hanging on. General Lee is surveying his troops and strategizing his next move. At a meeting of the generals with him, he is now being counseled by them that the time for surrender has to be considered. As they are describing the low volume of troop numbers, supplies, and overall morale of the troops, General Lee responds with, "There are still too many men who would do their duty, to do all their duty in their cause." Now, ultimately, he took the advice of his fellow generals and went to Appomattox Courthouse and surrendered, and effectively the war was over. But it was the idea of duty and reading those words of history that struck me. In that era of time, a man would be given to his word. There were those that had signed on for cause of one side or the other, as they believed it to be, and they had sworn to do all of their duty in regard to that cause to the place of full duty requiring death. So, obligation to death. The idea of duty in our day is far from us. People will do, by and large, what is convenient. When we sign on with the formation of a congregation and we say, "I'm here to support, I'm here to encourage, I'm here to be a part of this," that's all well and good while the novelty of the congregation is there, and while it's new, while it's fresh, and while it's exciting. But when it comes to helping through hard times, that's when we see the attrition rate go up, and people get discouraged, people get disenchanted, disillusioned, and they go find somewhere else to be. That's happened not just for my congregation over the years, but I would dare say for most congregations. You have some friends who say, "I want to study with you," and we study together. You meet in your living room, your basement, some rented room, some fellowship hall of a local church, however you gather, and things go well until we get into the meat and potatoes of the Torah, and we begin to realize, wait a minute, this is going to cost me something, or family and friends begin to question things and you don't have answers for. And then the idea of keeping your word and doing your duty and due diligence and following through becomes something that's a struggle. So again, it comes down to the path of least resistance and a sense of struggle. But as I said at the opening, if it's worth doing right. And that is that we must give our full heart, focus, and attention to something in order for it to become fruit-bearing. It's one thing for us to find a plot of ground or to build a vegetable bed, put in good soil, nourish the soil, put the right ingredients in, and then plant seeds. Once the seeds are planted, you don't just sit back on the porch and say, well, it'll come up if it will, and if it doesn't, it won't, and I'll see what happens. There has to be some sense of caregiving. If there's not enough rain, then you need to water the plants. If there are weeds that are growing up to choke out the plants, you need to be diligent enough to pull them out. If you have what I had last year and tobacco hornworms show up, don't know where they came from, but they came. You have to be diligent to look for them. They hide very easy, and they will destroy an entire plant overnight. So you have to be diligent to make sure that those guys don't show up, and if they do, that you get rid of them. We need to pray over our fields, our crops. And then we have to be diligent to pluck the sucker vines off of your tomato plants, and you have to be diligent to pluck the fruit at the right time. All of this requires a sense of follow-through, a sense of duty. And it comes down to this: do your job, do it right. Whatever you do, do it as unto Yeshua the Messiah, as if he is the one that you're serving in what you're doing. Let's consider what Yeshua said in Matthew chapter number 10. He said in verse number 16, "See, I send you out as sheep into the midst of wolves. Therefore be wise as serpents, and harmless as doves. But beware of men, for they shall deliver you up to Sanhedrins and flog you in their congregations, and you shall be brought before governors and sovereigns for my sake as a witness to them and to nations." That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Now, they were given anointing. They were given authority to cast out demons, to heal the sick. They were capable of doing signs and wonders. But Yeshua said, it's not going to be an easy road. Now, are you going to follow through with the assignment given? Or is it too inconvenient for you? In Luke chapter number 14, beginning with verse number 25. And large crowds were going with him and turning, and he said to them, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters and his own life too, he's unable to be my taught one. And whoever does not bear his stake and come after me is unable to be my taught one. For who of you, wishing to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid the foundation and is unable to finish it, all who see it began to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was unable to finish." Later on, he says, "So then, every one of you who does not give up all that he has is unable to be my taught one." Consider the cost. Do your homework. Understand whether or not you're willing to do the duty required to follow through on what you start. Many of us have a heart to follow Messiah. We love him. We recognize that we've been redeemed through his atoning work. We recognize that he is the Son of Elohim. We recognize that he is the soon and coming King. We recognize that when he brings his kingdom, that we are going to have a share and a part in it. But he also talked about wise and unwise servants. To those that were of the house of Gershon and in the house of Merari, they were given perhaps less glamorous jobs of carrying tapestries and coverings and veils and tents and curtains, and then sockets and boards and bars and the heavy and grunt work. It's not fun, but somebody needs to do it. And when the tabernacle was set up and the glory showed up, They knew that they were part of that facilitation. Do your part, and I'll do mine, and may the glory show up as a result. We'll talk more on these things tomorrow, and until then, shalom.